Welcome to this presentation entitled Building Online Learning Communities, Making Discussion-Based Learning Vibrant and Engaging. Based on research on learner-centered teaching by Terry Doyle and facilitating online learning by George Collison, Bonnie Elbaum, Sarah Haavind, and Robert Tinker. My name is Patty Garrett. I am the coordinator for virtual learning courses at the North American Center for Marianist Studies, and I will be your presenter. During this presentation, we will take a quick look at some recent research that supports learner-centered teaching that we will be adapting to online learning. Part of learner-centered teaching is discussion-led learning. We will review how the methodology supports retention and recall. We will then explore types of discussion questions that encourage critical thinking and problem solving. And of course, participants will be looking for feedback and assessments. We will reflect on why frequent feedback and positive assessments support participants to be successful learners. As an adult learner, much of our educational opportunities are going to be online. Why? We can fit online learning into our already busy schedules. We have specific areas to explore for our professional needs, and it is available and affordable. However, many adult learners expect their online experience to replicate their past academic experiences. Doyle says the good news is there is lots of current research supporting learner-centered and discussion-based teaching in relation to how our brains remember, retain, and recall information. This presentation will show you how online learning is the perfect vehicle to adopt both of these teaching methodologies. Online classes are a premier way to move from a lecture-based, teacher-led classroom to a learner-centered, discussion-based experience. According to Doyle, recent research shows that students need to be actively engaged in their learning, rather than passive receptors of information. It has been proven that students who are actively engaged in their learning and then given an opportunity to use their knowledge in a real-world setting retain much more information by growing the brain's dendrites. A facilitator gives the students the responsibility of being active rather than passive learners. The facilitator is still responsible for creating learning goals and offering feedback and assessments. Collison and collaborators write that at first participants might ask, "Who is the expert here?" and may feel a bit lost. In an online environment using learner-centered pedagogy, the teacher moves from expert to a facilitator who helps guide participants into discovering knowledge on their own. Doyle writes that suggesting not all members of the discussion work at the same level or students lose their distinctive voices are arguments some students propose for not liking discussion-based learning. However, a big benefit of introducing learner-centered teaching in an online course is there is no front of the classroom. Everyone has to contribute. Collison and collaborators state participants can't be saved by the bell and run out of time to be called on by the teacher. An introverted student has time to think, and an extroverted student doesn't demand the facilitator's attention. Online learning is an organic way to introduce learner-centered teaching. Doyle reminds us that research shows that there is a link between our social natures and our ability and willingness to learn. Students that experience discussion-based teaching find this is a positive experience and look forward to having that experience again. Not only that, discussions encourage problem solving, creative and critical thinking, and reflection. Being part of a discussion requires not only talking, but active listening. According to Collison and collaborators, in an online setting, participants have time to reflect on their responses. Other learners have time to read and reflect on what others have posted before they respond. As the facilitator, I also have time to thoroughly read the responses and look for connections or perhaps places that need to be repeated or redirected. Cyberspace time is more fluid than face-to-face classroom time. Another benefit is you have the opportunity to edit. Don't you wish we could rewind and edit our thoughts in real-life conversation sometimes? The first day of an online course is similar to face-to-face classrooms. Participants ask themselves if they have all the right materials, wonder if the facilitator will notice them or think they are smart, and hope they will be successful. But Collison and collaborators state in an online environment, it is not easy to assess who the other participants are or even make a first impression for yourself. In fact, if students are not allowed to introduce themselves, they may not answer the discussion question that is posed until they feel acknowledged in some way as a unique person. Encouraging students to post a profile picture is one way to have online participants feel less impersonal. In the courses I facilitate, we have a separate discussion board called the Meeting Place. I explain to the participants that this is a place to kick off your shoes and get comfortable. To begin the conversation, I post a little bit of personal information about myself regarding my family or my interests, and then invite others to do the same. It is also encouraged to post thoughts that might come up during our discussion but do not fit directly into the content. It is amazing the connections that are made between students. Even though they live across the globe, there is usually something everyone can find in common and begin to build community around. Composition of the discussion prompts make a big difference in the quality of the conversation. Questions that yield a yes or no response or a factual answer does not set up good dialogue. Questions that set up problem solving with evidence of the solution, or questions that use the higher order Bloom's taxonomy method, elicit responses fertile for full discussion. Metacognitive questions challenge students to use previous knowledge and experience to respond and opens up the conversation to everyone in the group. All discussion prompts must keep the learning objectives, time frame, and students' ability in mind according to Doyle. In an online environment, discussions can start to ramble if the facilitator doesn't jump in and sharpen the focus now and then. When the facilitator begins to see conversation going off course, they can log on and restate some of the comments made from the participants that are on topic. Collison and collaborators suggest facilitators insert citations from the readings so the participants are back on common ground for their responses. Sometimes the question posed on the discussion board has simply lost steam. When that happens, I ask a new question or post a quote from a well-known author on the same topic and ask for reflection. The message I hope I convey over and over is that I want to read their insights on the topic. I don't want to answer the question myself. I am truly interested where their observations will lead us in this learning community. Doyle and Collison and collaborators agree that observing patterns is important in all areas of study. We must thoroughly train students to notice patterns in our specific content area so they will be able to use this skill in other content areas. Research shows that our brains are constantly seeking patterns to organize and link knowledge. Therefore, it is imperative for teachers to recognize how their students' brains create patterns for learning. While reading discussion posts, the facilitator can highlight the patterns that are revealed in the conversation. This encourages participants to do the same and helps them find the points they would like to respond to for deeper discussion. Doyle frequently reminds us more strategies for successful learner-centered teaching include the use of mapping and scaffolding tools. Mapping strategies involve students making maps or diagramming lectures or reading materials in ways that help them remember important concepts or connections. This is also a great tool for review to prepare for assessments. Learning to use scaffolding as a tool increases the brain's ability to retain information. Once scaffolding on a particular topic is established, teachers can ask students to predict what comes next or use a previously learned skill on a new project. Collison and collaborators suggest in an online discussion board, facilitators can introduce scaffolding and mapping by asking, "So what?" questions. Why is this important? How can this be useful to you? Participants can be asked to clarify the meaning of vocabulary terms. Now new information is connected with a clear basis of understanding. Further questions can ask for cause and effect or possible outcomes of a particular topic. Building and connecting information supports the retention of new learning. Doyle states asking students to restate what they have learned in their own words helps them understand the material better by using their own vocabulary to link to previous knowledge. Telling a story or using a metaphor relating to the topic supports students' ability to retrieve the information in various contexts. In an online course, restating the information is particularly important. If everyone simply cited from the materials, students could just copy what the previous students submitted. By having students respond to each other, they are restating the information again. Now the students have reviewed the material in at least 3 different ways: the text, their own words, and another student's thinking. The assessment methods for discussion-led learning is in keeping with the learner-centered classroom. Doyle suggests that teachers can frequently provide review sheets so students can see what they should be focusing on during the discussion. Teachers can also assess discussion skills with frequent conferences with students to review expectations and by offering constructive feedback. Teachers being prepared, having clear learning objectives, knowing their students, and making sure students have had time and skills to be successful support a positive outcome of discussion-led instruction. As a facilitator, I offer weekly assessment opportunities. Participants answer an essay question using information from the readings and from the discussion boards. I do not give grades as feedback, but highlight the positive points made in the essay. Sometimes I fill in the blanks if I see there is information missing that is leading the student to an incorrect conclusion, or direct them to a particular passage in the reading materials to flesh out what they have written. I also encourage dialogue between myself and the student. If they feel the need to defend their answer, I see this as an opportunity to see how they are thinking and hopefully offer tools to point them in the right direction. There are times they are gleaning something out of the material, though, that points me in the right direction as well. Doyle's main message is researchers have discovered that learning takes place by the one who does the work. It is the job of the facilitator to nudge, coach, model, and direct students to accept this challenge. Whether in a face-to-face classroom or online, we have the opportunity to provide learning environments that train students to be lifelong learners. The student leaving the classroom or the participant completing a professional development course should have retained knowledge that will make them successful in their future work or academic careers. Learner-centered and discussion-led teaching supports that outcome. During this presentation, we explained how recent research supporting learner-centered teaching for face-to-face classrooms can easily be adapted in online learning environments. With the recent research proving that restating material into your own words, finding patterns and mapping, as well as responding to others increases the brain's ability to retain and recall information. Discussion-based teaching techniques are an organic way of building an online learning community. We also reviewed several styles of discussion questions that help students feel safe and secure. We then looked at how certain questioning invites critical thinking and problem solving rather than simply repeating what participants have read. Because we are online, it is important for the facilitator to acknowledge the presence of the participants by frequent feedback and positive assessments. This also ensures that participants are on the right track so they have a firm foundation for their scaffolding and pattern building. Thank you for watching.